Hi, and welcome back to Reddit Whispers. I never thought I'd be the guy sharing my story on Reddit, but here I am, 3 months after my world collapsed, still trying to make sense of what happened. My name is Jake, and until recently, I was living what most people would call the American dream. I had everything: a thriving cryptocurrency portfolio worth over $2 million, a beautiful wife named Sarah, and a business partnership that seemed unbreakable. But as I learned the hard way, when you're dealing with that much money, everyone around you shows their true colors eventually. It all started 5 years ago when Bitcoin was still hovering around $8,000. I was working a dead-end job at a marketing firm in Austin, Texas, making barely enough to cover rent on our cramped apartment. Sarah and I had been married for 2 years then, and we were constantly stressed about money. She worked as a dental hygienist, and between us, we were pulling in maybe $60,000 a year. Every month was a struggle to pay bills, and we'd lie awake at night talking about how we'd never afford a house, never have kids, never escape the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. That's when I met Marcus at a local cryptocurrency meetup. He was everything I wasn't: confident, well-dressed, driving a Tesla Model S while I was still taking the bus. Marcus had been trading crypto since 2016 and claimed he'd already made his first million. I was skeptical, like most people are when someone talks about getting rich quick, but Marcus showed me his portfolio. The numbers were real. He had positions in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and several altcoins I'd never heard of, and his account balance made my head spin. The key, Marcus told me over expensive scotch that night, isn't just buying and hoping. It's understanding market psychology, reading the charts, and most importantly, having the balls to make big moves when everyone else is scared. He offered to mentor me, to teach me everything he knew about cryptocurrency trading. In exchange, he wanted me to help him with marketing his trading signal service, using my background in marketing to grow his subscriber base. It seemed like the perfect partnership. I brought the marketing expertise, he brought the trading knowledge, and together we'd both get rich.
Sarah was hesitant at first. She'd heard all the horror stories about people losing everything in crypto, and she didn't trust Marcus. "There's something about him that doesn't sit right with me," she said one night after Marcus had come over for dinner. "He's too smooth, too perfect, and the way he looks at me when you're not paying attention." I dismissed her concerns. I thought she was just being paranoid, maybe a little jealous that Marcus and I were spending so much time together. Looking back, I realized she was trying to warn me, but I was too blinded by the possibility of wealth to listen. My first investment was modest, $500 split between Bitcoin and Ethereum. Marcus guided me through setting up my hardware wallet, explained the importance of security, and taught me how to read basic chart patterns. Within 3 weeks, that 500 had become 800. I was hooked. Over the next year, I gradually increased my positions. Every spare dollar went into crypto. I stopped buying coffee, started bringing lunch to work, and convinced Sarah to cut back on her shopping. "This is our ticket out," I kept telling her. "Just give me 2 years, and we'll never have to worry about money again." Marcus's trading signals were incredibly accurate. He'd send out alerts to his subscribers and to me privately about which coins to buy and when to sell. His hit rate was over 70%, which in the crypto world is almost impossible. I started putting in larger and larger amounts, borrowing against our credit cards, even taking out a small personal loan to maximize my positions.
By the end of 2021, when Bitcoin hit its all-time high near $70,000, my portfolio was worth almost $400,000. Sarah couldn't believe it. We paid off all our debt, bought a beautiful house in one of Austin's most desirable neighborhoods, and I quit my job to focus on trading full-time. But that was just the beginning. Marcus suggested we formalized our partnership. He wanted to start a hedge fund focused on cryptocurrency investments, with him as the lead trader and me handling all the business operations and marketing. We'd split the profits 50-50, and with the contacts he'd made in the crypto space, he was confident we could raise at least $10 million in initial capital. The fund launched in January 2022, right as the crypto market was starting to show signs of weakness. But Marcus seemed unconcerned. This is when real money is made, he told our investors. When everyone else is panicking, that's when opportunities appear. He was right. While most crypto traders were losing money as Bitcoin crashed from its highs, Marcus was making brilliant contrarian plays. He'd short coins right before major crashes, then go long right before rebounds. Our fund returned 30% in its first quarter, while the overall crypto market was down 40%. Word spread quickly in the Austin crypto community. We had wealthy investors calling us daily, wanting to get in. By summer, we were managing over $15 million, and my personal trading account, separate from the fund, had grown to over $2 million. Sarah seemed happy during this period, but I realized now she was changing in ways I didn't recognize. She started dressing differently, more expensive clothes, jewelry I didn't remember buying her. She began going out with friends more often, sometimes not coming home until very late. When I asked about it, she said she was just enjoying having financial freedom for the first time in our marriage.
I spent so many years worrying about every dollar, she told me. Now I just want to live a little. I didn't question it. I was too focused on the trading, on growing our wealth, on proving to everyone that I wasn't just lucky, I was skilled. The money was intoxicating. Every week brought new all-time highs in my portfolio. I bought a Porsche, upgraded Sarah's wedding ring, started looking at vacation homes in Colorado. Marcus and I were spending 12 to 14 hours a day together, analyzing markets, planning trades, meeting with investors. Our office was a converted warehouse in East Austin with multiple trading setups, dozens of monitors showing charts and news feeds. We hired 2 assistants and an accountant. Everything was growing, everything was working. But I started noticing small things that bothered me. Marcus would sometimes take private calls and step outside, speaking in hushed tones. He'd get text messages that made him smile in a way that seemed oddly secretive. A few times, I caught him quickly closing browser windows when I walked into his office. Probably talking to other investors, I told myself. Or maybe he has a girlfriend he hasn't told me about. The truth was so much worse than anything I could have imagined. In October 2022, Marcus made what he called the trade of a lifetime. He discovered information about an upcoming regulatory announcement that would devastate several major cryptocurrencies. He wanted to put nearly everything, both our personal accounts and a significant portion of the fund, into short positions on these coins. "This is it, Jake," he said, his eyes bright with excitement. "This one trade will make us both incredibly wealthy. We're talking about turning 2 million into 10 million, maybe more." I hesitated. It seemed too risky, too much like gambling rather than investing. But Marcus had never been wrong before. His track record was flawless. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We placed the trades on a Friday afternoon. Bitcoin was around $20,000, and Marcus was betting it would crash below $15,000 within 2 weeks. He leveraged our positions heavily, using borrowed money to multiply our potential gains and our potential losses. That weekend, I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Sarah kept asking what was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to tell her that I'd risked everything we'd built on a single trade. Instead, I spent hours walking around our neighborhood, looking at the house we'd bought, the life we'd created, and wondering if I'd just gambled it all away. Monday morning, I rushed to the office early, desperate to check the markets. But when I got there, Marcus was already at his desk, staring at the screens with an expression I'd never seen before. His face was pale, his hand shaking slightly. "What is it?" I asked, though part of me already knew. He turned to look at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my blood run cold. It wasn't just fear, it was guilt. "Jake," he said quietly, "we need to talk." The numbers on the screen didn't make sense at first. I stared at them, blinking, waiting for my brain to process what I was seeing. Our short positions, the trades that were supposed to make us $10 million, were showing massive losses. Bitcoin hadn't crashed below $15,000 like Marcus predicted. Instead, it had surged overnight to $25,000. "How was this possible?" I whispered, sinking into my chair. "You said the regulatory announcement was going to tank the market."
Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes. He kept staring at his monitor, his jaw clenched tight. The announcement got delayed. Sometimes these things happen. The information I had was good, but the timing was wrong. But something in his voice didn't sound right. There was a shakiness there, an uncertainty that I'd never heard before. Marcus was always confident, always sure of his moves. This was different. I pulled up my personal trading account on my phone, and my heart stopped. $2.3 million had become $400,000 overnight. In a single weekend, I'd lost almost $2 million. Marcus, this can't be right. Check the numbers again. Maybe there's an error with the exchange. He finally looked at me, and I saw something in his expression that made my stomach drop. There's no error, Jake. We're leveraged 20 to 1 on these positions. Every dollar Bitcoin goes up, we lose 20. The room started spinning. Leveraged 20 to 1. That meant we'd borrowed money to amplify our bets, turning what should have been manageable losses into catastrophic ones. I never agreed to that level of risk, never authorized that kind of leverage. When did we agree to 20 to 1 leverage? My voice was getting louder, more desperate. I thought we were using standard positions. Marcus stood up and walked to the window, his back to me. You signed the authorization forms 3 weeks ago, don't you remember, when we were setting up the new trading accounts? I did remember signing paperwork, but Marcus had rushed through it, explaining it was just routine documentation for our expanded fund operations. I trusted him completely, barely reading what I was putting my signature on. Show me the forms. Jake, calm down. We can recover from this. Bitcoin is volatile. It could crash back down tomorrow, and we make everything back and more. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was pulling up our funds account, checking the balances for our investors' money. What I saw there made me feel physically sick. Marcus had used similar leverage on the funds positions. $15 million had become $3 million overnight. Marcus, we just lost $12 million of other people's money. How are we going to explain this to our investors? He turned around, and for the first time since I'd known him, Marcus looked genuinely scared. We don't have to explain anything yet. These are paper losses. If we hold the positions and Bitcoin crashes like it's supposed to, everything works out fine. And if it doesn't crash? What if it keeps going up? It won't, he said, but there was no conviction in his voice anymore. I spent the next hour on the phone with our prime broker, trying to understand exactly how bad our situation was. The margin calls alone were going to wipe out most of our remaining capital. If Bitcoin continued rising, we'd be completely liquidated within days. When I finally hung up, Marcus was gone. His desk was cleared out, his personal items missing. There was a note on my keyboard. Had to handle some urgent business. We'll call you tonight. Don't do anything until we talk. I sat alone in our office, surrounded by all the monitors and equipment that had once represented our success, and tried to figure out how my life had fallen apart so quickly. This morning, I'd been a millionaire with a thriving business and a beautiful marriage. Now, I was facing bankruptcy and the possibility of criminal charges for losing investors' money. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Hey babe, going out with the girls tonight. Don't wait up. Love you." At least she didn't know yet. Maybe I could figure out a way to minimize the damage before I had to tell her we'd lost everything. I spent the rest of the day trying to reach Marcus, calling and texting with no response. By evening, I was frantic. I needed him to explain how we were going to handle the investors, how we were going to recover from this disaster. Around 10 p.m., I decided to drive to his apartment. Maybe he was just overwhelmed and needed time to think. We'd figure out a solution together, like we always had. Marcus lived in a luxury high-rise downtown, the kind of place that required a doorman and keycard access. I'd been there dozens of times for business meetings and social events. The doorman recognized me and waved me through to the elevator. I knocked on his door, calling his name. No answer. I tried calling his phone and could hear it ringing inside the apartment. Either he was ignoring me or he wasn't there. As I turned to leave, I heard voices in the hallway, a woman's laugh that sounded familiar. I froze, listening more carefully. It was Sarah's laugh. My heart started pounding as I heard footsteps approaching. I quickly ducked around the corner, hiding behind a decorative pillar in the hallway. The elevator opened, and out stepped Sarah and Marcus, holding hands, laughing together like lovers. Sarah was wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Expensive, elegant, the kind of thing that would cost more than we used to make in a month. I watched, paralyzed, as Marcus pulled out his keys and opened his apartment door. As they went inside, I heard Sarah say, "I can't believe he still hasn't figured it out. You'd think losing $2 million would make him suspicious."
Marcus's response was muffled, but I heard enough. "Don't worry about Jake. He's too trusting, too focused on the money to see what's right in front of him." The door closed, and I stood in that hallway for I don't know how long, my entire world reshaping itself around this new reality. My wife was cheating on me with my business partner. The man I trusted with everything had been sleeping with Sarah, probably for months. But worse than the betrayal was a growing suspicion that the trading disaster wasn't an accident. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing through every interaction, every conversation, every decision over the past few months. How long had this been going on? How much had they planned together? The house felt empty and cold when I walked in. I went straight to Sarah's closet and started looking through her clothes, her jewelry, her personal items. Designer bags I'd never seen her buy. Expensive jewelry that hadn't come from me. Credit card statements showing charges at restaurants and hotels I'd never been to. How had I been so blind? I sat on our bed, the bed I'd bought when we got rich, the bed she'd been sharing with me while carrying on an affair with Marcus, and tried to piece together the timeline. When had the affair started? Before our big trading success or after? Then a horrible thought occurred to me. I opened my laptop and logged into Marcus's trading signal service, the same service that had made me rich in the first place. I started going through the historical data, checking the accuracy of his predictions against actual market movements. What I found made my blood run cold. Marcus's trading signals weren't just accurate, they were too accurate. No one, not even the best traders in the world, could predict cryptocurrency movements with the precision he'd been showing. His success rate over the past 2 years was statistically impossible. Unless he was getting inside information from somewhere else. I spent the rest of the night digging deeper, cross-referencing Marcus's trades with market movements, looking for patterns. By dawn, I had a theory that made me sick to my stomach. Marcus wasn't a trading genius. He was getting advanced information about market-moving events, regulatory announcements, major institutional trades, exchange listings, and using that information to make seemingly prescient trades. The cryptocurrency market was full of manipulation and insider trading, much of it technically legal because crypto regulation was still evolving. But if Marcus had access to that kind of information, why had he made such a catastrophic bet on Bitcoin crashing? Either his source had given him bad information, or he'd made the losing trade intentionally. My phone rang, startling me out of my research spiral. It was Marcus. "Jake, thank God you're awake. Listen, I've been working all night on this situation. I think I found a way to recover most of our losses, but we need to act fast." His voice sounded normal, confident, like the old Marcus. Like he hadn't just destroyed my life and been sleeping with my wife. "Where were you yesterday?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I tried to reach you all day." "I was meeting with some contacts, trying to line up additional capital." "Jake, this isn't over. We can still save everything. But I need you to trust me one more time." Trust him. The man who'd been betraying me in every possible way wanted me to trust him. What kind of recovery plan? "There's a new coin launching next week. I have information that it's going to explode. We're talking about 1,000% gains in the first week. If we can get positioned early, we can make back everything we lost and more." It was the same pitch he'd given me dozens of times before. The same confidence, the same promise of easy money. But now I knew what it really was. Another manipulation, another lie designed to separate me from what little money I had left. Marcus, I need to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth. Of course, anything. Are you sleeping with my wife? The silence on the other end of the phone lasted so long I thought he'd hung up. Jake, what kind of question is that? Sarah is your wife. She loves you. Why would you even think? Because I saw you together last night, at your apartment. Another long silence. When Marcus finally spoke, his voice was different, colder. The mask was finally coming off. How long have you known? Marcus asked, and in those 5 words, everything I'd suspected became reality. I was sitting in my home office, surrounded by printouts of trading data and credit card statements. The evidence of my wife's affair and my business partner's betrayal spread across my desk like pieces of a puzzle I'd been too stupid to solve. I saw you both last night, I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. Outside your apartment. Heard enough to know this has been going on for a while. Marcus sighed on the other end of the phone. Jake, listen, it's not what you think. Don't, I cut him off. Don't insult my intelligence any more than you already have. I know about the affair, and I'm starting to understand the trading disaster wasn't an accident either. This time the silence stretched even longer. When Marcus spoke again, the friendly facade was completely gone. What do you want, Jake? I want the truth, all of it. How long has this been going on? How much of our trading success was based on insider information, and did you deliberately sabotage that Bitcoin trade? You really want to know? I deserve to know. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. You deserve to know? Jake, you never deserved any of this. The money, the success, the beautiful wife, none of it. You were just lucky enough to be in the right place when I needed a marketing guy.
The cruelty in his voice was like a physical slap. This was the man I'd considered my best friend, my partner, the person I trusted with everything. The affair started 8 months ago, Marcus continued, right after you bought that ridiculous house and started acting like you were some kind of financial genius. Sarah came to me, said she was tired of being married to someone who thought he was smarter than he actually was. Each word was designed to hurt, and it was working. But I needed to hear all of it. And the trading? You really figured that out? I'm impressed. Yes, I had sources. People at major exchanges, guys at hedge funds, contacts at regulatory agencies. The crypto market is like the Wild West, Jake. Everyone who's making real money is getting inside information somehow. But the Bitcoin trade, you made us lose everything on purpose. Smart boy, took you long enough. I felt like I was going to be sick, but I had to keep pushing. Why? You lost your own money too. Did I? Marcus asked. Jake, you never saw my actual trading accounts. Those balances I showed you, the portfolio screenshots, half of them were fake. I've been moving most of my profits offshore for months. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I almost couldn't process it. Everything I thought I knew about our partnership had been a lie. The investors' money? Did you steal that too? Steal is such an ugly word. Let's say I reallocated it to better opportunities. Opportunities that don't involve splitting profits with a naive marketing guy who thinks reading charts makes him Warren Buffett. $12 million of other people's money, gone. And I was going to be the one left holding the bag, the one whose name was on all the legal documents. You're going to ruin me, I said quietly. You ruined yourself, Jake. You got greedy. You borrowed against your house, maxed out your credit cards, put your entire net worth into trades you didn't understand. I just gave you the rope. And Sarah, what's her role in all this? Sarah's role was to keep you distracted while I moved assets around. Do you think it was an accident that she suddenly wanted to go out all the time, started spending more money, kept you focused on making her happy instead of paying attention to the business? The manipulation had been perfect.
While I was working 16-hour days trying to grow our wealth, trying to be the successful husband Sarah deserved, she was feeding information to Marcus and helping him plan my destruction. She told you about my trading passwords, didn't she? My account details, my investment strategies. Among other things, Sarah's very good at getting information from men who trust her.
I thought about all the nights I'd come home excited to share my latest trading insights with Sarah, how she'd listened so attentively, asking detailed questions about my strategies and positions. I thought she was being supportive. She was being a spy. What now? I asked. Now you disappear, Jake. You take what's left of your money, what, maybe $400,000, and you start over somewhere else. Keep your mouth shut about the insider trading, and maybe I'll make sure the fraud charges don't stick to you. Fraud charges? You're the managing partner of the fund, Jake. Your name is on all the investor documents. When those people realize their money is gone, they're going to want someone to blame, and I'll be long gone by then. The call ended, and I sat in my empty house, understanding for the first time how completely I'd been destroyed. It wasn't just the money, though losing $2 million was devastating enough. It was the systematic dismantling of my entire life by two people I trusted more than anyone in the world. I heard Sarah's key in the front door around noon. She walked into my office wearing the same dress she'd worn to Marcus's apartment, looking relaxed and satisfied in a way that now made me sick. "Hey, babe," she said casually, "working from home today?" "We need to talk." Something in my tone made her pause. She studied my face, and I saw the exact moment she realized I knew. "Jake, what's wrong?" "Sit down, Sarah." She remained standing, her hand moving unconsciously to her phone, probably wanting to text Marcus that I was on to them. "I know about the affair," I said simply. Sarah's face went through several expressions: surprise, fear, and finally something that looked almost like relief. "How long have you known?" "Since last night. I saw you with Marcus." She nodded slowly, then sat down across from me. The woman I'd been married to for 7 years, the woman I'd built my entire life around, looked at me with the cold eyes of a stranger. "Are you going to ask me why?" "Marcus already explained. You were tired of being married to someone who wasn't as smart as he thought he was." Sarah laughed, and the sound was bitter. "Is that what he told you? Jake, you really don't get it, do you?" "Get what?" "This was never about you not being smart enough. This was about money, real money, the kind of money that Marcus has access to, not the few million you made playing with cryptocurrency." "A few million? Sarah, we went from broke to millionaires in 3 years." "And Marcus went from millionaire to 100-millionaire in the same time. He owns properties in 5 countries, has accounts in Switzerland and the Cayman Islands, connections to people who move real wealth around the world." I stared at her, seeing clearly for the first time how little my wife had ever thought of me or our life together.
When did it start? The affair? About 8 months ago. But Marcus approached me almost 2 years ago after he realized how much money we were going to make together. He needed someone close to you, someone who could monitor your activities and make sure you didn't get suspicious about his information sources. You've been spying on me for 2 years? I've been protecting an investment, Jake. Marcus needed to know that you wouldn't dig too deep into his trading methods, that you'd stay focused on the marketing side of things. I made sure you stayed distracted. The calculation in her voice was terrifying. This wasn't a woman who'd fallen out of love or made a mistake. This was someone who'd systematically betrayed me for years and felt no remorse about it. The Bitcoin trade. Did you know he was going to crash our accounts? I knew he was planning to end the partnership. I didn't know exactly how. And you were okay with that? With destroying our life together? Sarah stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood we'd been so proud to afford. Our life together was built on lies, Jake. Marcus's lies, yes, but also your lies. You thought you were some kind of trading genius, but you were just following someone else's signals. You thought you'd earned this house, this lifestyle, but it was all someone else's money and someone else's intelligence. I worked for everything we had. You worked at being Marcus's marketing department. The real work,
The research, the connections, the risk-taking, that was all him. She turned back to face me, and I saw something in her expression that was almost like pity. "I'm leaving, Jake, tonight. Marcus has already arranged everything." "Where are you going?" "Somewhere warm. Somewhere far from here, far from the mess that's about to explode when those investors realize their money is gone. Sarah, they'll come after me. Marcus set me up to take the fall for the fraud charges." "I know." 2 words, "I know," said with such casual indifference that they hit harder than any insult Marcus had thrown at me. "You don't care. Jake, we haven't had a real marriage in years. We've been roommates with joint bank accounts. I stayed because the money was good and I thought it might get better. But Marcus showed me what real wealth looks like." She walked toward the door, then paused. "There's $50,000 in cash in the safe upstairs. The combination is still your birthday. Take it and disappear, Jake. Start over somewhere else, and maybe you'll be smarter about who you trust next time." "What about the house, our belongings?" "The house will be foreclosed on within 6 months. The bank will take everything, but that's not my problem anymore." After she left, I sat in my office for hours, looking at the evidence of my destroyed life spread across my desk. Trading records showing impossible gains built on fraud. Credit card statements revealing my wife's secret life. Legal documents that would probably land me in prison. I thought about Sarah's advice to take the money and run, to disappear and start over. It was tempting. $50,000 would be enough to relocate, maybe find work somewhere no one knew my name. But running felt like admitting I deserved what had happened to me. Like accepting that Marcus was right, that I'd been nothing more than a naive marketing guy who got lucky for a few years. Instead, I started making phone calls. First to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, then to the SEC, then to a criminal defense attorney who specialized in cryptocurrency fraud cases. If Marcus and Sarah thought they could destroy my life and walk away clean, they were about to learn how wrong they were. The FBI agent sitting across from me in the sterile conference room looked like she'd seen every type of financial fraud imaginable. Agent Rebecca Chen was probably in her 40s, with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she didn't have patience for lies or excuses. "Mr. Harrison, let me make sure I understand your story," she said, flipping through the files I'd brought her. "You're claiming that your business partner, Marcus Webb, has been running an insider trading scheme for at least 2 years and that your wife was complicit in covering it up?" "That's correct." "And you had no knowledge of the illegal activities?" This was the question I'd been dreading. How could I prove that I'd been genuinely ignorant of Marcus's methods? How could I demonstrate that I'd been a victim rather than a co-conspirator? "Agent Chen, I know how this looks. I was the managing partner of the fund. My name is on all the documents. But I need you to understand something about cryptocurrency trading. It's entirely possible to have extraordinary success through legitimate means, especially in a bull market." I opened my laptop and pulled up the analysis I'd spent weeks preparing. Look at these trades from 2020 and 2021. Marcus's success rate during this period was around 65%, which is very good but not impossible. It's only in the past year that his accuracy became statistically impossible. Agent Chen studied the data, her expression unreadable. "What changed in the past year?" "That's when the real money started flowing in. Once we were managing $15 million instead of just our personal accounts, Marcus apparently decided he needed more reliable information sources." "And you noticed none of this?" "I was focused on the business side, marketing, investor relations, operations. Marcus handled all the actual trading. I trusted him completely." I handed her another folder. "These are phone records showing thousands of calls and texts between Marcus and Sarah over the past 8 months. Here are credit card statements showing charges to restaurants, hotels, and jewelry stores that I never authorized. And here are screenshots of Marcus's trading accounts that I now believe were fabricated." Agent Chen spent several minutes reviewing the evidence. When she looked up, her expression had softened slightly. "Mr. Harrison, assuming you're telling the truth about your ignorance of the illegal activities, you still made some incredibly poor decisions. You leveraged your entire net worth based on trades you didn't understand, executed by someone whose methods you never questioned. You're absolutely right. I was greedy and naive and stupid, but I wasn't criminal. The distinction may not matter to the investors who lost their money. Over the next 2 months, my life became a series of depositions, interviews, and legal meetings. The FBI investigation moved quickly once they started digging into Marcus's activities. It turned out he'd been much sloppier than I'd realized. Agent Chen called me on a Tuesday afternoon in December with an update. "We found Marcus," she said without preamble. "Where?" "Turks and Caicos." He'd been living under a false identity, but he made the mistake of accessing one of his old trading accounts from his hotel Wi-Fi. Our cybercrime unit traced the connection. "What about Sarah?" "She was with him. They're both in custody, awaiting extradition." I should have felt satisfaction, but mostly I just felt empty. The 2 people who destroyed my life were going to face justice, but that didn't bring back my money or fix my reputation. "Agent Chen, what about the investors' funds? Were you able to recover any of it?" "Some. Marcus had moved about $4 million offshore, but we've frozen those accounts. It's not everything, but it's better than nothing. 4 million out of 15. The other 11 million was apparently gone forever, spent on Marcus's lifestyle and hidden in accounts the FBI couldn't locate. The criminal trial started in March. I testified for 3 days, walking the jury through every detail of how Marcus had manipulated me and defrauded our investors. The hardest part was testifying about Sarah's role in the scheme. "Mrs. Harrison," the prosecutor asked, "provided your husband with intimate details about his trading activities and investment strategies?" "Yes." "And she passed this information to Marcus Webb?" "Yes." "For how long?" "Approximately 2 years." Hearing the betrayal described in such clinical terms in front of a room full of strangers was almost worse than discovering it in the first place. Marcus's defense attorney tried to paint me as an equal participant in the fraud, arguing that no one could be as naive as I claimed to be. But the evidence was overwhelming. Phone records, financial documents, and testimony from Marcus's other sources painted a clear picture of my exclusion from the illegal activities. Sarah pled guilty and agreed to testify against Marcus in exchange for a reduced sentence. Watching her on the witness stand, calmly describing how she'd systematically betrayed our marriage, I realized I felt nothing for her anymore. Not anger, not sadness, not even disappointment. She'd become a stranger. Marcus was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Sarah got 3 years. I got my life back, or what was left of it. The house was indeed foreclosed, just as Sarah had predicted. I moved into a small apartment near downtown Austin, taking a job with a legitimate investment firm that specialized in traditional securities rather than cryptocurrency. My new salary was a fraction of what I'd been making during the boom times, but it was honest work. The hardest part wasn't the financial devastation, though losing everything I'd built was certainly painful. The hardest part was learning to trust my own judgment again. For months, I second-guessed every decision, every instinct, every relationship. If I could be so completely wrong about the 2 people closest to me, how could I trust anyone ever again? But slowly, very slowly, I started to rebuild. My new job was at a small investment advisory firm run by an older man named David Chen, no relation to Agent Chen, despite the shared surname. David had been in the business for 30 years, had lived through multiple market crashes and financial scandals, and had a reputation for absolute integrity. "Jake," he told me during my interview, "I know your story. I know what happened with Webb and the cryptocurrency fund. The question isn't whether you made mistakes. We all make mistakes. The question is whether you learned from them." Working for David was like getting a masterclass in legitimate finance. Everything was documented, regulated, transparent. Every trade had a clear rationale based on fundamental analysis. Every client relationship was built on honest communication about risks and expected returns. It was boring compared to the adrenaline rush of cryptocurrency trading, but it was real. 6 months after the trial ended, I got an unexpected call from Agent Chen. "Mr. Harrison, we've recovered additional funds from Marcus's offshore accounts. Your share of the recovery is about $200,000.
It wasn't the millions I'd lost, but it was enough to pay off my remaining debts and start thinking about buying a small house again. Agent Chen, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think I was just incredibly naive, or was Marcus that good at manipulation? She was quiet for a moment. Mr. Harrison, in my experience, the most successful fraudsters aren't the ones who target stupid people. They're the ones who target smart people and exploit their specific blind spots. Marcus knew you were intelligent and ambitious, so he gave you just enough real success to make you believe you were a trading genius. He knew you loved your wife, so he used her to monitor and control you. So I was naive.
You were human. You trusted people you should have been able to trust. That's not a character flaw, it's just bad luck. I started dating again about a year after the trial. Nothing serious at first, just coffee dates and casual dinners with women I met through work or mutual friends. I was upfront about my situation, about the bankruptcy and the very public fraud case. Most women weren't interested in taking on that kind of baggage, which I understood. But then I met Lisa. Lisa was a paralegal at the law firm that had handled my divorce from Sarah. She'd worked on my case, had seen all the ugly details of my marriage's collapse, and somehow still agreed to have dinner with me when I asked. "I have to admit," she said over our first real date, "I was curious about you. Most people in your situation would have been bitter, angry, looking for someone to blame. But every time I saw you in depositions or meetings, you seemed, I don't know, almost grateful." Grateful? Like you were glad to finally know the truth, even though it was devastating. She was right. As painful as the whole experience had been, there was something liberating about finally understanding reality. The success I thought I'd earned had been built on lies, but the failure I was experiencing now was authentic. It belonged to me. Lisa and I took things very slowly. I was paranoid about trusting anyone too completely, and she was patient with my neuroses about money and relationships. When I finally told her I loved her, almost 2 years after we started dating, it felt different from anything I'd experienced with Sarah. It felt earned. We got married in a small ceremony at Austin City Hall, with David Chen as one of our witnesses. No expensive reception, no designer dress, no pretense of wealth we didn't have. Just two people who'd found each other after their respective life disasters and decided to build something real together. 3 years after Marcus was sentenced, I got a letter from him in prison. Against Lisa's advice, I read it.
"How does it make you feel?" she asked. "Sad, mostly. Sad that someone I cared about was capable of that level of deception. Sad that so much damage was done for money that's already spent and gone. Do you forgive him?" I thought about it for a long time before answering. I don't forgive what he did, but I forgive him for being human enough to do it. Does that make sense? Lisa nodded. Perfect sense. 5 years after losing everything, I'm not rich again. I probably never will be, at least not in the way I once was. Lisa and I live in a modest house in South Austin, drive used cars, and budget carefully for vacations and major purchases. But I sleep well at night. I know exactly where every dollar comes from and where it goes. I understand the difference between making money and earning money. Most importantly, I know that the woman lying next to me loves me for who I am right now, not for what I might be able to provide her. Sometimes former colleagues from my cryptocurrency days reach out, usually because they've heard about some new investment opportunity that promises extraordinary returns. I always decline, and I always explain why. "Jake," one of them said recently, "don't you miss it? The excitement, the potential for life-changing gains?" "I miss the money," I told him honestly, "but I don't miss the person I became when I thought making money was the same thing as being successful." Last month, Sarah was released from federal prison after serving her full 3-year sentence. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was working as a waitress in Dallas, living with her sister, trying to rebuild her life from nothing. I felt no satisfaction in her struggles, no desire for revenge or further punishment. She'd made her choices, just like I'd made mine. The difference was that my choices now came from a place of honesty rather than greed. If you've made it this far, I'd love to hear from you what moment in your life made you see someone for who they truly were. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to Reddit Whispers, where the real stories get told.